Welcome everybody. This is a quick little video. I'm hoping it's going to be between 10 and 15 minutes of a little bit of a review of what we talked about in class last week. Basic AutoCAD interface, basic what I'm asking for assignment 1A, 1B, 1C, but really just getting our feet wet with learning a new program, a new software program. So we are working in AutoCAD 2023, which you can see at the very, very top of the interface. When you first open up AutoCAD, this is the interface that you're going to see. Basically, the home page is what we're going to call it and what it is. Off to the left, I did share an AutoCAD file, which you actually see a little glimpse of here. We obviously in class did not have this little glimpse, but you have downloaded this file from Canvas. Saved it hopefully to your desktop, which I'm going to review in a little bit. And I'm just going to show you, starting out with assignment 1C, I just wanted to show you and get you used to using the move tool, deleting. We always need to know how to delete in any program, right? And then moving and selecting. So I'm going to review that first. So on this interface in AutoCAD 2023, I'm going to hit this button, Open. And like I said, I'm going to start with the file, the AutoCAD file that I started with, but let's just backtrack a little bit. So project files, saving your work, double checking that you have it backed up in 2 to 3 locations, really important. We, even at week 1, week 2, week 3, we don't want to lose any work. I have lost enough work to last a lifetime, and I don't want you to go down that same path. So what I'm asking is that you start a project file. So some of you work in OneDrive. I myself also work in OneDrive. I am on a Windows operating system. I am using AutoCAD 2023 on the Windows side. I am not on a Mac. We could talk about that more in class, and maybe I make a separate video for that. But for the most part, on OneDrive or my desktop, I am going to make and have already made a project file called SP23, so Spring Semester Year 23, Digital Media 1. And I've also created a subfolder within that main project folder called Week 1. And this is really how I'll organize myself throughout the weeks. Inside Week 1 is where I have downloaded the AutoCAD file that is basically assignment 1C. Why this isn't named 1A, we could talk about that in class. But literally, I want you to start with this one because it's very basic, very generic. You can start to get used to the interface that you're going to work in AutoCAD. We're going to be focusing in AutoCAD for the next couple weeks, so it's a nice little exercise to begin with. So I'm going to open it up. And and like I said, I call out in the symbol delete, move, and window selecting. I did not create this document, just so you know. Many, many moons ago, I found this for free online, and I thought it was fantastic, and I've been using it ever since. Let's start off, though, explaining the interface of AutoCAD. So what you are looking at right now, in the window, I should say, the rectangle, giant rectangle, is called a viewport. In AutoCAD, the viewport background is the color black. You actually can change it. I probably will not show you that in options for several weeks, but it's kind of a nice contrast to what we're going to draw throughout the semester. So I'll keep it the black background, again, just so that when we land our fantastic new jobs as interns or junior designers, you know, nothing is unique when we open up AutoCAD. Again, a little something about AutoCAD. It is considered a CAD, well, the name of it is AutoCAD, and the last 3 letters, of course, are CAD, standing for Computer Aided Design Drafting. So it is pretty much one of the first, I should say. It's a 60-plus years old program. We have been using it in the architecture industry for moons. Even with the newer software that you're going to learn, like Revit, Rhino, 3D Studio Max, plugins that you're going to use and learn about, which are V-Ray and Enscape. Oh, and I can't forget about SketchUp. Even with all these great new modern programs, AutoCAD at its base level is something that I think you're going to always use um, in projects. Most buildings, especially in the Chicagoland area, but I don't doubt in the world, their base plans have been drawn possibly in AutoCAD because maybe it's 20 years old or 30 years old or 15 years old. So you need to know how to get in and out of this program. In academia, we're going to use it, to draw basic floor plans, starting out with week 2 this week. We're going to draw elevations, we're going to draw sections, we're going to draw chairs in 2D. We're going to mostly work in 2D, not 3D. But for the most part, it's a great program to learn about. In the upper left-hand corner, this is what's called our quick axis toolbar. We can save, we can open, we can print. We have this great command in AutoCAD called undo, which, again, if I think I've made a mistake in whatever command or action that I've taken, I can always undo. You also have the opposite arrow, which is called redo. It's not highlighted right now because I haven't done anything, but these are great options that we're always needing, and hence why they're called the quick axis toolbar, because there's something you're going to see quite a bit. The interface, as you're probably noticing too, kind of emulates also Microsoft Word, Excel. The layout is the same, so if you're working in those programs, it's probably getting familiar. In the upper left-hand corner, you will see the icon for AutoCAD. It is red. There's a giant A. If you select that this is also options to opening, closing, printing, publishing. We'll start talking about units very shortly. This week coming up, we're going to learn how to print. We're going to print with a CTB file. We're going to load some CTB files generically under this manage plot style. So we're going to be kind of all over the place. Options I mentioned earlier, and changing the color of the background of the viewport, but there are many options that you can change and many colors you can change. So we can get customized, but for the most part, for the next couple weeks, I'm going to pretty much stay standard in AutoCAD. As soon as you open up AutoCAD, you will always be by default highlighted on the Home tab. The Home tab, as you can see in the upper left, houses many panels. It's kind of a tabs and panels interface, if you will. The far left is called Drawing, Modify, and this is where we're focusing today and next week and the following. We're going to draw some objects, or we're going to modify some objects by moving or copying. Your delete is actually that icon there, which is called Erase, but for the most part, I'm going to teach you on your keyboard. You can just use the delete keys on your keyboard, and it's usually 10 times faster. I'm always trying to find the most efficient way of teaching you AutoCAD, so you're not wasting 0.2 of a second if you can help it. We will move on to annotation, actually probably by the end of week 2. We're going to add our names to our drawing, maybe a room name, just very generic, just basic setting up of text. To the right of that is what's called layers. Again, we'll get into that in week 2. Blocks will also start to develop and understand what they are week 2. Properties, every object we draw, every object that we create has properties to it. It has a layer name, or it's on a layer. It might be defined by a color, which actually is represented when we print in line weight. It might have a size, which of course it does, a width, a length, a diameter, on and on and on and on and on. And based on those properties, we can develop beautiful drawings, very detail-oriented drawings, very design-developed drawings, through line weights, through grayscales, through hatching, which are really important. So it really doesn't matter what tool we're using in the interior architecture department or interior architecture field. It matters on what you're drawing and what it looks like. So we get very detailed very early on in Digital Media 1 about that. We'll get into groups and what's the difference between groups and blocks. Utilities, I started showing this in class 1. If I draw a line and it's 6'2", how do I double check it? Through the distance tool is probably the fastest way, but I'll also show you an old school command called list, which will also allow that. Clipboard, so any program that you're working, whether it's a Windows-based machine or a Mac, we can copy and paste. I copy text or sentences from Word into AutoCAD. I'll draw something in AutoCAD and paste it into Word. I mean, just, whatever is needed for at the time, moment of the task. But literally, there's some easy, fun things that we can do. In the upper right-hand corner, if you have signed in, which I have, you will see your username in the upper right. If you're a student, let me just refresh your memory. With Autodesk, as long as you sign in as a student with your EIE or EDU email, Columbia's, you can download AutoCAD for free, you can download Revit for free, and you can download 3D Studio Max for free. These are programs that you're going to be using not all in this semester. Really, AutoCAD is all we're going to be focused in on this semester with Photoshop and InDesign. But as you move on to Digital Media 2, you will be focusing in Revit and SketchUp, Digital Media 3, you'll start learning Rhino, and on and on and on and on and on. So with that said, you can kind of look forward to that in the upper right. In the bottom of the interface on the right-hand side are many commands, which I am not going to get into right now. When we are viewing our viewport and the viewport has a black background, most likely you are in what's called model space. And that's that button that you see right now that I'm highlighted on. To the right of that is grids. I had my grids off. That's why it was gray. Now it's kind of bluish. It's now on. You can barely see my grid. Probably, maybe if I zoom out, you can see it better. For the most part, as I'm teaching you guys AutoCAD, I keep it on. So that's a good thing that I noticed that. Next to that is a snap mode. We aren't going to use this, but you can. I'm going to turn that off for now. The next command we're going to use quite a bit, which is called ortho mode. When you use your F8 key or this button, it allows you to draw straight vertically or horizontally. So this is a good one to start to get used to, and we're going to use it quite a bit, especially as we start to begin and draw our first floor plan this week. Next to that is what's called polar tracking. By default, it is turned on. I'm going to leave it on, and that just has to do with constraints to how you draw, and I'll show a little bit more of that in week 2 and in our next video. I'm going to skip a couple of these and move to the one that's called Object Snap. Object Snap is a great tool, one that you will always use as you draw, create, move, copy, what have you. Object Snaps, if you hit the little arrow to the right of that, little flag up will, pop-up window will pop up, and it basically will show you through default a check mark next to some of these object snaps, one being endpoint, one being center. I always have these top 3 turned on no matter what I'm drawing, because you're always drawing rectilinear and curvilinear objects. So endpoint, midpoint, center is going to help you along. Sometimes quadrant, if I'm really getting detailed with a curvilinear shape like furniture. Intersection, extensions, these are again by default turned on. Perpendicular is another one that I'll put on. Nearest is another, but I tend to keep nearest off, but perpendicular on. But just be very careful when you start to move things. There's constraints that pop up while you draw in AutoCAD. Those are the things that is going to maybe take a little time to get used to. But once you're familiar with it, once you know things that are pop up and flash and flags that pop up, you'll start to get used to it, make it easier for you to draw quicker. So hold that thought. Everything else along here, hold that thought. We'll start to move into that in more detail in week 2. So for the most part, the last thing I want to explain with the interface is at the very bottom there is a command line. I kind of mentioned move, copy. So even though we have under the tabs and panels the hotkey, and that's what these are called, copy or move, and you can select an object, you can enter it in, and then literally this is the constraints that I was talking about. We have a command line that is asking for information. We also have a floating command line, which wherever my cursor goes, it follows. I am right now in the move command, and how do I know that? Because at the bottom of my command line, or the stationary, I should say, command line, I literally have the command move listed, and basically it's asking me for a base point. So if I move my cursor over, you are set to a center point, which is basically an object snap. And how do I know that? Because the flag pops up. If I move to the quadrant, literally that perpendicular object snap that I have on is basically set, and it's kind of looking for quadrants or perpendicular to that. I'm actually going to snap on the center by just snapping on the left side of my mouse and then moving it wherever. If you move to your quick axis toolbar in the upper left, you could just say undo or Control Z, and it'll undo and get you back to where you were. It will not only undo my command, it'll get me back to pretty much where I was visually, zoomed out, zoomed in. And that's probably something I should talk about next is your mouse. Hopefully you're all using a mouse with a trackball. In fact, I have never seen, or I haven't seen a mouse without one for years. But if you scroll using the trackball, I am right now what's called zooming out. If I zoom in closer, it's what's called zooming in. If I push down on my trackball with my mouse, it basically is called the pan tool. You will use your trackball, anytime you draw in AutoCAD. Actually, anytime you draw in any program, it's just kind of like having a pen to hand and repositioning where you're going to start to write or draw or sketch. So it's a tool that's very needed. So in this first option here under A, all I'm asking is that you erase the red trees that have been infected. So you will get into some selecting, and you'll see that I can snap one by one the red trees, and on my keyboard I could just hit delete. Again, if I hit Control Z, I can undo all of it. I can manually just use the hotkey, and I also can do the same thing if I wanted to. Little X will allow you to select. Now, mind you, this is taking me longer, and I know it. That speed is not a concern of yours yet, not in Digital Media 1, I should say. Take your time and letting things absorb and letting them, your subconscious and your conscious meet. But as you move on, you're going to want to draw faster, only in the sense of completing work, getting in on time, what have you. But what I want to start to show you is if I take my mouse and I just drag a window, so you saw kind of two things happening. If I snap and drag a window right to left, this is what's called a crossing window. Anything that is touching this window is going to get selected, and again, I can delete off the keyboard. Okay? If I cross a window from left to right, it's a blue crossing window, but only what's inside that window will get selected. So notice the smaller circle right here is getting selected, but the larger one is not. Actually, both of them are not. So I would only be selecting one. You're going to get used to, again, Control Z to undo. You're going to get used to selecting it literally manually, one by one object by one object, or you're going to get used to selecting little crossing windows. And I find I use the crossing windows more because I can select faster, and that's really the answer to that. So that's kind of typical A. B is moving the trees around so that in each little property, and obviously the little rectangle is a property, each property has two trees. So I'm going to take this. Again, I can use my hotkeys under my tabs and panels and select move, and I can select the curvilinear object based on its center, and then literally I can move it within the space. We want to be very careful. Again, Control Z if I want to undo that. Instead of hitting the hotkey here, I could just type M for move. And literally when you type the first letter of most commands in AutoCAD, you'll get this kind of pull down menu that'll pop up, and you can select. And mind you, I could just hit M and enter, and it'll know that I wanted the move tool. Literally, like, it's pretty quick in that front. And then I'm using object snaps just to be able to select precisely my object, which again, that's just allowing us to get detailed. And we want to make sure that I'm not overlapping trees. They could be overlapping in the sense of not their trunk, but their leaves. But for us with drawings, we want to start off being as neat as possible. So literally, again, object snaps and on. So what I find with AutoCAD, and maybe a little disruption that happens, it's really your mouse usage. On the left side of your mouse is how you select. Your trackball allows you to zoom in, zoom out, and pan. But then the right click is kind of enter. We can enter on the keyboard. We could use the space bar to enter, but also right-clicking on the mouse kind of defines what you've selected. So you're going to start getting into the habit of kind of thinking about it and then doing it, but eventually your subconscious is just going to take over and you're not even going to think about it. It's just going to happen naturally. So again, I'm zooming out, I'm zooming in, I'm panning over. So C, and C is probably out of the three options a little bit more complex. I basically wanted you to select, if you select a green car, and just so you know, these cars are drawn as, this is what's called a polyline, which we'll get into week 2. These, of course, are circles, and these, of course, are trapezoids. But the car is made up of 6 objects. I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 objects. Sorry, I can't add. And you are going to take, if I'm looking at a green car, that green car belongs inside the green box. So you're basically coordinating by color. And this is a matter of, do I select each piece individually, right? Or based upon our crossing window selections, can I just cross a window right to left and all gets selected? Or do I cross a window left to right, which again, I can't do this. I have to have the whole car enclosed. If I do this, it won't select all my objects. So you'll find that most of the time, especially me, I'm always doing a window or creating a window, crossing window from right to left, so everything gets selected. You can select objects first before the command, or you can select the command and then select objects. That is completely up to you. I tend to kind of go back and forth, all depending on what the command is, but sometimes it's just faster to select the object, type M for move, and then literally select, an object snap on the car. Again, this is what an endpoint looks like. This is what, of course, you saw a little bit of the circles earlier, center point looks like. So, again, if I, in this line, wanted the midpoint, I'm looking for the midpoint, I'm moving my cursor near, and then a flag will pop up with the symbol, so it allows to tell me. So I kind of, I have to help AutoCAD along with my object snaps. But I know once I've selected an endpoint or a center point, I know I'm moving it perfectly from the object's specific point to somewhere within that interior box. So yeah, you're going to move all these boxes in their appropriate color. So like this magenta car is inside a blue box. I'm just going to type move. I'm going to select it at its endpoint, and I'm going to go find a magenta. Oh, both of my magenta boxes have cars in them, so I'm just going to move this down here, and I'm going to move this car. So I might be playing a game here, but this is good for you to see. And this was a white car, and here is a white rectangle. So kind of a little fun exercise. Again, nothing relating to interior architecture by far, but it is just getting, like I said, your feet wet with understanding panning, zooming out, zooming in, moving, selecting an object, or what have you. Once you have edited A, B, and C, I pretty much want you to save. I probably should have done a save as, because I'm going to ask you guys specifically to add your last name to all documents. Why? So that I know that it's yours on top of, I can grade quickly. So I'm just adding my last name to this assignment 1C, and this is what I'll upload eventually at the end of today. And I'm going to hit save here. So I saved, but then I just did a save as also on top of it. And you can see right above your viewport, there are tabs also. There's a start home screen, which is basically where we began. That's where I hit the open button earlier. But now that I have opened a file, you'll see that the name of that file is always in that tab also. And the next exercises, assignment 1A and 1B, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this because we're going to review this at the beginning of class this week. I wanted you guys to go into the application menu. So again, the upper left-hand giant A in red, and I want you to start a new drawing. And what's going to pop up is a template folder automatically by default. And the template file that I want you guys to select is this AutoCAD file. Again, it's just a generic template file. Units are not set up. Basically, not too much is set up, but it allows us to edit this template file very generically and a great learning tool. So I use it quite a bit for us starting out the next couple weeks. So again, go ahead and select that template file. Go ahead and open. And right away, again, we see the tab is named just Drawing 1, so I'm going to do a Save As very shortly. If I zoom out, again, on the bottom of my interface, I do have the grid on. So as I zoom out, you should see a grid vertically and horizontally. You will see this user coordinate icon. Because again, what are we drawing in the viewport? We're drawing basically on top of a coordinate system called the world coordinate system. This symbol here is called the user coordinate system, and it is showing that our axis that is horizontal is the x-axis, and it's showing that the y-axis is our vertical axis. And literally there are 4 quadrants, which you kind of see a little bit of my visuals on Canvas, me pointing that out. The x-axis, as we just said, is horizontal. There's a positive x-axis, and then to the left of that, which you don't see, is what's called negative x. There's a positive y-axis, which you're seeing right now, but if I were to move and draw down, that would be in the direction of a negative y-axis. Where we always want to draw so that we're dealing with the positive x-axis and the positive y is basically what's called the positive quadrant. It's basically to the right and up within the quadrants itself. Where the x-axis and the y-axis meet, that is what's called the origin point. So that square right there, and actually let me zoom in on this so I'm not too far away. It seems like I can't zoom in too close, so bear with me. But right where my cursor is right now on top of that box, that is the origin point. So where x and y meet, there is a third axis in AutoCAD. It is a 3-dimensional axis, and that's called Z. So the 3 axes in AutoCAD are X, Y, and Z. We are, however, only concentrating in the x-axis and the y-axis. So with assignments 1A and 1B, I am asking you on the sheets that I have given you, which I don't think I have open. Hold on. I do. Literally, I'm asking, and I believe this is assignment 1A, I'm asking you to draw either a line vertically or horizontally, but I'm asking you to draw it to a specific dimension. In number 2, I'm asking you to draw a polyline. A polyline, at the end of the day, is just a rectangle. So we're going to start getting used to the terminology in AutoCAD and familiarity. If we select the polyline command, we can draw a rectangle, but we can also draw using the rectangle tool. I want to introduce you to what's called explode. What that means is you can take an object that is a polyline that has 4 sides, 8 sides, 7 sides. 7 sides could be 4 straight lines and 3 arcs. But if you explode an object like that, you then take it from its single form and you turn it into many, many objects. And then I basically wanted to share with you, how do I get back to that exploded object being a polyline? The reason why I'm torturing you in number 2 is we're going to start getting into drawing furniture, just simple furniture, simple chair, simple desk, nothing fancy. More importantly are walls, windows, doors, elevators, stairs, but the little things like furniture, we can help ourselves efficiently and time-wise and understanding a little bit of if we need to custom build and draw, which I think you always do. And so again, we'll do that again in number 3. Number 4 is rectangles. Number 5, I'm getting a little bit specific on what kind of coordinate I want you to enter, and I'm basically calling out relative coordinates to drawing some rectangles or lines. And then last on the list for assignment 1A is just drawing some curved lines using the spline command. The spline is a really great tool. However, it's not so easy to build off of it 3-dimensionally. But you don't have to worry about that because we're not going to be doing too much of that. So anyway, assignment 1 is just getting, again, our feet wet with drawing some lines. You are just drawing, again, making sure you're drawing in the positive quadrant very generically. So I'm going to select the line tool. Something I want to point out is the symbols that you see on the line tool, that solid blue circle at the end of each of the ends of the line, that's basically the questions you're going to be asked on the command line. Again, when I select a line, immediately my command line at the bottom, it's calling the command out line in capital letters, and then it's asking me to specify the first point. I'm going to just start right smack there. And then right away, I didn't bring this up, I am looking at some constraints. So a couple things are happening. You're seeing these dashed lines and angles and degrees. Anytime I move my cursor, it's going to be showing me basically the degree that I'm at, literally. And so right now you see 28 degrees. So if I snap on the left side of my mouse, I will have drawn a line 28 degrees from where its start point is. However, what you're also seeing is a little flag that's highlighted in blue, and it says 10.0949. Right now, my template file in AutoCAD is set to a decimals unit, not architectural. So before I even draw anything, I want to hit the escape key, and I want to type the command units. I totally forgot this. I should have shown this like 5 minutes ago. That's all right. So units, if you type it, you'll literally get this pop-up window, and that's what I mean by a decimal degree setting. Right now my links under my drawing units is set to decimal. If I hit close, let me just show you on the command panel, literally in the upper left-hand corner, where units also exist is also under drawing utilities, and units are right there. I find, again, and I'll always share this with you guys, if I type the first two letters, literally it's the first command that pops up. But notice there's a bunch of others, so be very careful. Again, I'm looking to see where units is, and I'm just either right-clicking on my mouse, entering on the keyboard, or spacebar. Either one will work. Let's change our units to architectural. So when we type in a distance of 6 foot 3 inches, it understands what that means. So again, architectural, go ahead and hit OK. Yeah, and how, nothing really happens on the interface because I don't have a listing down here, but one thing I'm going to start sharing with you is in the very bottom right-hand corner, there is a menu. And at the very, very top of this menu, there's what's called coordinates. And I know when I was learning AutoCAD, this is really important for me. Go ahead and check that on. And what that's going to do is give you at the very, very bottom, almost center, at the very bottom of your screen, it's going to give you the coordinates of X, comma, Y, comma, Z. Z is always going to be 0 feet, 0 inches for us for the whole entire semester because, again, we're not building anything in 3D in AutoCAD. Hoping by the end of the semester you see a little bit of 3D in SketchUp. Yeah. Anyway, with that said, it's kind of nice. When I move my cursor around, it also moves, so it's kind of a nice placement. So again, I'm going to get back to drawing a line. Again, snapping a point. I do need this to be either a straight line or a vertical line, so I am going to turn on what's called ortho mode, which, again, you can just hit your F8 key to turn that on, and now you can see I'm locked in horizontally along X, or I'm locked in vertically along Y, and I'm just going to type draw a horizontal line to begin, and I'm going to make it 6 foot 3. Now notice how I'm entering in a coordinate. We'll get into this again this week in our week 2 session, but basically it's your first number is always going to be feet, of course. The symbol for feet is the hyphen. Notice I am not formally typing this out like this. This is how we would write it, right? Don't need to do that in any digital program that you draw in, just the feet and then inches. You don't even need the inches tick because if you're calling out the feet, AutoCAD is intelligent enough that it understands that information, and it understands that it knows I want a line drawn 6 foot 3 inches from here. So I'm just going to hit enter, and notice it's going off the screen. You can right-click on your mouse to end the command. You can hit enter, or what I like to do is I like to zoom out. So I move with my trackball out, zoom out, and then I will end it, literally. Now, how do I know? Immediately I remember long ago drawing in AutoCAD and thinking, how do I know that's right? This is where, again, under the Home tab, all the way to the right under Utilities, let me hit escape. When you're stuck ever, hit the escape key in the upper left-hand corner. So constantly I'm drawing in AutoCAD with my right hand and my left hand. But at the top, under Utilities panel, go ahead and pull down the menu under Measure. And if I want to double check what I've drawn, distanced it, if you will, select it and move to one of the endpoints, which basically, again, is an object snap tool that we're going to use, and we're going to draw from endpoint to endpoint. And it's a matter of not just drawing, it's not drawing, it's basically snapping to where I want specific distance to be told. And I know now from this temporary dimension being shown for me in this at the top that truly this line is drawn properly at 6'3", and I'm good to go. So what you're going to find is, if you're like me and you started close to the user coordinate icon, I probably want to move this up and a little further away. But again, all that matters is I'm staying within this positive quadrant. Okay, so I don't want to make this an hour-long video. I'm going to try always not to. I know this is a little longer than I normally make. I try to limit my videos to 10 to 15 minutes, but I know this has probably been about 20 minutes, 25. So anyway, I'm going to end here. I basically want you to start off with assignment 1C, then wrap up into assignment 1A and 1B. Assignment 1A is easier than assignment 1B because assignment 1A is just lines, exploding, polylines, pettit. When we get into assignment 1B, I'm getting a little bit more creative with you and asking you to draw me a polygon or a hexagon. And again, not necessarily we starting out drawing these shapes, but I just wanted to get you a little bit more familiar with some details of shapes and questions that you'll get asked throughout the program. So anyway, obviously if I'm ending here for now, I am going to do a save as, and I am going to name this file because this is going to be for me both assignment 1A and B. So I'm going to name it that. And then I'm always going to ask you guys to add your last name. Always. There is never a time you're ever going to share a file with me from AutoCAD, which is a DWG file, from InDesign, from Photoshop. It might be a JPEG image, it might be a PDF, but I'm always going to ask that you add your last name to all files. And then from here, I'm just going to hit save. Again, that tab now has proper naming convention. I also, let me just point out, again, I am also working in my project folder, so SP23DM1, week 1, and literally you are seeing where I last left off. And then we will pick this up this week in lecture and making and creating these into PDFs and of course uploading them to Canvas. Okay guys, I hope this was super helpful. Again, I always review at the beginning of each class, and these videos that I'll create, I'll probably do them more towards the end of the week, not the following week, so you can watch these quicker. If you are somebody that's not in class and just curious about basic AutoCAD, I hope this also was helpful, even though maybe I spoke a little bit specific towards interior architecture. Anyway, hope you are having a great week, and I will see you shortly. Thanks. Bye.